killed.
Yeah, I have had a subscription
We'll
for
reopen the
years.
public meeting and ask for certification of closed session.
Resolution of certification of the closed meeting of August 17, 2017, pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended.
So move.
Second.
Board Member Bouchard.
Yes.
Board Member Brooks Buck.
Yes.
Board Member Byram.
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick.
Yes.
Board Member Skeeter.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Copeland.
Aye.
Chairman Dobransky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We have any public speakers on agenda, for speaking for agenda topics?
No, not today.
Okay, reports by the superintendent.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. If you'll turn to page 1, the only item we have under the reports by the superintendent is our special events calendar. We have our new teacher breakfast, welcoming back our new teachers, August 21st at Kings Fork High School, Middle School. New teacher orientation the week of August 21st through the 23rd. All teachers return on the 24th. We are having a convocation this year, August 24th at Kings Fork High School at 8:30, and system-wide staff development August 28th and 29th, and of course the first day of school, September 5th. If you'll take a look at the next page, we have several other items as well. I won't read those, but you can use that for your review and keep note of those items.
Board members, if you look at the consent agenda and see if any of the action items need to be moved to another area of the menu, please look at this time, consent agenda. Now, can we get a recommendation, please?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Board Member Bouchard.
Yes.
Board Member Brooks Buck.
Yes.
Board Member Byram.
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick.
Yes.
Board Member Skeeter.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Copeland.
Aye.
Chairman Dobransky.
Yes.
Motion
There's
carried.
no unfinished business. Let's go to new business, budget development calendar for next year.
Thank you. I'm going to call to the podium Ms. Wendy Forsman, our Executive Director of Finance. If you'll turn to page 49, what we have here today is a process, somewhat of a modified process for our budget development. One of the things that we talked about making certain that we do this year is try to provide a little bit more transparency when we begin our budget process. So, Ms. Forsman, if you'll take the lead from here.
Thank you. Good morning. To provide some more budget transparency, we've made some changes to the calendar, and here are some of the areas that we're going to focus on this year. One would be communications beginning September 2017. So as we roll out the budget documents, we'll be communicating with staff and stakeholders to let them know that it is time to begin input for the budget, the new budget year, as we begin the process. We'll have a visible location on the website that we'll have hopefully up and running in January. And we'll publicize a month-by-month process. So where are we in the process? What's going on? What is the next step? What's the next time that people have input into the process? We're also going to publish frequently asked questions. When the superintendent's proposed budget plan is given out in February, we'll actually have questions at that time and answers for folks on the changes to the budget so that we won't wait several months. We'll have those right away. We'd also like to have a public ask a question on the website that's designed for budget. So that page for budget will have an ask a question, and we will respond to questions on that website. Also, we're going to have key messages published so that you'll have them for your use and for SAO use and for principals' use, key messages in the budget. What's changing? What are the things that are being added to the budget? What things weren't added to the budget? So you'll have a nice document to have with you that will help you with your communication as well as our principals and members of the cabinet. The next two slides are really just an example of how we would begin to show on the website for folks when the input for different stakeholders begins. So in September, as we roll out the beginning budget documents, we send those to the schools and to the departments. We would have on the website that this is the time for input from teachers and staff to their principals, to their department heads regarding the budget for the next year. So we would put that out on our website currently to show people that this is the time for them to give their input. And we will put emphasis on whose input we want and at what time so that people will understand the budget process a little more. As we move through the year, you can see the public hearing in December would be the time for citizens to comment on the budget priorities. And again, we'll put emphasis on this is the time for the public to come and put their input as to what they feel the budget priorities should be for next budget year. I'm sorry, I keep going backwards. If you look at the budget calendar on page 53, you can see there are several dates in March. And one of the things that has changed about that is the public hearing for the citizen input will not be at a regular board meeting. We will do a separate meeting for that. And so that's just a change from what we've normally done. In addition, there is a joint council meeting and a special session to approve the budget. These are all, at this point, separate meetings until we get closer and make decisions on dates. So to give you just an overview of the changes, the superintendent and the school board chairman will meet with the city manager in August to begin the budget discussions. The communications will be out on the website. We'll have a dedicated page to the budget January 18. Frequently asked questions will be published at the time of the proposed budget rather than waiting until later. We'll have the public ask a question with email back from the budget office. And then each program and service page in the actual budget document will now have a small section that will say 1819 changes and outline for the reader exactly what the changes to that program are for the budget, new budget year. So they'll see if we change a person from a dean to an assistant principal. On the page for general ed, it'll say one dean moved to assistant principal, and then on the assistant principal, on the office of the principal page, it will say assistant principal moved from dean, so that they can see both sides of what happened to the budget and where the changes were made.
We're going to see the pay changes as well.
Changes as well, right on the bottom of the page, published with the book.
Very good.
I think you should add to those things, along with the most frequently asked questions, is the most common misconceptions when trying to read the budget.
Okay?
That's a good one.
Yes, ma'am. And that's really all. We just wanted to highlight those changes for current year.
Let me ask the question.
Certainly.
By the time we have community input, our budget is pretty well planned. They review the budget itself. My feeling is that parents ought to have, citizens ought to have an opportunity to expound on what they heard last year, what their schools are about that's missing or whatever, before we put all the dollars on the dollar line. Maybe we will say, well, yes, that is an issue that we need to address at this point. Normally, when the budget is presented, we have public appearance, and they said to us last year, it's already done, why even come if we have something to say? So I think we would need to relook that a little bit. I don't know if it would be the principals would say to parents, new parents, our older parents would, know that their children, second, third grade on up, could come up and could make an expression of what they think we should be looking at, if possible, in there.
We can have that at the December 14th meeting.
December 14th?
Yeah, it's a good time to have that meeting.
Yeah, so our budget is together.
Yeah, by December 14th.
By December 14th?
Yeah,
December
well,
14th.
it's on paper,
No, we don't have a budget.
right? Am I
By
not?
December 14th, we don't really have
No.
a budget at that
Anything.
particular point, no. This is kind of a meeting to kind of see what the priorities are based on community input. Obviously, we've not had a lot of participation, so perhaps part of our effort could be to get that word out a little bit more than we have
Yeah.
in the past.
December
Speak
14th would be a good day to have it.
Yeah, I think that's important,
Mm-hmm.
because,
Yeah,
excuse me, we wait until the last minute, and then everybody come bombarding the board. And I think they ought to be given the opportunity early on to make suggestions, so that they will be a part of the process.
Well,
and,
you're saying to make sure
saying
it is
before-
communicated, sorry.
Yeah, communicated properly.
I'm sorry, are you saying before December 14th? 'Cause the
No, no,
budget's
no,
not
no.
ready.
No, no.
He's saying to get the word to the parents, make sure that they have the opportunity and know that they can come then before the deed is done, so to
Yes.
speak.
But the
and-
deed's not done till March, and there's a meeting planned for December 14th.
So communicating
And
better
community
with the
input.
public,
So
I
you're
think is
saying
what
we
I'm
need
hearing.
to better communicate
Yes,
that December. Let me ask you
When we
this.
have the input.
When we have formal input on the budget, I think, too, we need to let people know when they come before the board, people who attend board meetings, have the opportunity to then not just reach out to their own board member from their district about what their priorities are so that we can present those priorities to them, but also at any board meeting, when we have public speakers, we have an opportunity for public speakers. So every time we have a board meeting, people have the opportunity to say, this should be a priority.
I think the next two board meetings should also reflect that as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Every time you have an opportunity for public speaking, even today, somebody could talk to us about a priority that they feel we may have missed.
Well, I think
Last year.
14th be the formal date
Right, to do that.
to
But
start it and then keep it going from there.
But
they
there's
can do it
another
now.
thing, Dr. Brooksburg, that when they come to speak, and it's not, we are not supposed to, they speak, we are not supposed to respond
Right.
to that. I think it would also be a good idea for us to formulate some type of response that we can publicly give long before,
The next meeting.
long before the ding-dong of doom, so that they know that, okay, what you proposed is somewhat possible, blah, 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 or is not possible because in the budget, whatever. In other words, give some response along the way as well. I don't mean directly, but
I don't know that we could give a response with regard to what's really going to happen. The
not what's going
problem
to happen, but when they say, why don't you do this, or why can't you do this? Sometimes we really can't.
And in some instances, those questions become some of the frequently asked questions.
Asked
So I think
questions,
that,
right. So
I think
we
I
could- we could
understand what
address
you're
them
saying,
about
that
it.
if we see that there's a pattern or there's a question, and we really want to get the word out that our hands are tied with this particular item, or this is why we've done that, we can turn that into one of the commonly
Yeah,
asked
so
questions.
that they don't, so that our public doesn't think that they are ignored.
Right.
Right.
That, in other words, they don't just come
That's
and
it.
complain, and we just ignore it. Oh, well, that was interesting, now let's just forget that and move on. When we actually are dealing with their concerns, but we're not verbalizing it down the road.
Sure.
And we don't have citizens, parents don't always go, it's a great idea that you have it on the internet, the website. But a lot of parents, you could take a survey, never seen the website.
Yeah.
You know, you have questions on, I know last year at the end of the year, doctor answered many of the questions about the budget. And then you meet citizens, they don't, you know, you say, can look on, you can see it up there. But I don't bother with a computer. I don't have that access to do this or
So
that.
how do you think we should respond
One
to
of the
these
ways
people?
you just suggested, but I think we should have them, some input long before we have a sheet of paper in front of us with a basic budget on it.
Right.
And so if there are things that we could work with that we haven't thought about, administration hasn't thought about, things that could take place in the budget, they could review it and look at it, and if it doesn't impact everything else, maybe we could do
But that's
those
a good
kinds of
point
things.
that you said about they're not reading the internet. That's why if they were to come up, say, one school board meeting with a concern, and then either you or someone responded, you know, someone spoke to us last month and they were concerned about this. And we want you to know that we've looked into this and this is how we have dealt with it. I mean, somewhat.
And
It could be general.
Right, and oftentimes, staff does that already. In other words, if there's a legitimate concern, and I know, and oftentimes, you all have said to me, I'm concerned about that question later, you'll say that to me, we'll follow up with that particular parent to find out what their concern is, the specifics, and deal with it accordingly. When we look at the community input session, December 14th, that's the time that input is provided. And when we see, my thought is, when we see that there is a pattern, a focus area, that this is what the general community is saying, then it behooves us to say, we need to consider that when we develop the budget, and I don't present you all the budget until February 8th, so that gives us ample time before anything is presented to you all. Now, quite honestly, I start looking at developing the budget now. I mean, very preliminary.
Yeah.
But it's just that, because what I send to you all, and you all have, can be changed. And that's just the way the process works. But I think, if I'm hearing you all correctly, we need to put forth much effort in making sure that that December 14th date is well communicated to our public so that they know this is the opportunity. I think also we've had discussion about, and it's not included in the budget development calendar, where administration and you can go out to various areas within your area, within your borough, to present, to answer any questions, provide input. So in other words, going to them. And this is an opportunity to say, this is this year's budget. What do you see as our priorities for next year's budget? What are your recommendations, concerns, or comments? Is that something the board would like for us to try to?
I think so. I think if our media person would relay that early as we begin our news in the school year, there's available staff to come to your association meetings, your civic league meetings. If you make an appointment, call, and we'll come out and discuss those questions with you.
We can do that.
Yeah, something there.
I would like to add as well, I'd like for us to think about this. I would rather that the staff member respond to the budgetary concern and explain it. Of course, if someone came to Nassau Borough, if we had a meeting, I would be there, but I'd rather let the staff explain the nuances of whatever is going on, rather than us trying to give our perception of what it ought to be. Of course, responding to our constituents in an informed way as best we can, but not trying to respond in a school board meeting to something that somebody has. I think that's the way that we have done it. If somebody brings a concern, what we do is ask the superintendent and the staff members to look into whatever the concern is and then report back to us what the resolution of the problem is. I think we ought to stay on that particular plane, because when we start to try to answer it, rather than, even though I understand the school board budget and those kinds of things, I would rather let Mrs. Forsman or the superintendent speak to that, or if it's a building thing, Mr. Napier and the superintendent. That's the kind of thing I don't want us to get into, or I'd caution that we not get into that.
As long as they get some response.
Yeah, as long as they get a response, and I think that's what you were saying.
I just think it should be, if they ask a public question, then we should get a public answer to them in due time, not, and what you said about privately contacting them, that's good, but then the rest of the public doesn't know that you have so diligently followed up on that. It should be also just generally made public.
I think, I have no problem doing that, but I do think we have to be careful thinking that we're going to be able to respond publicly to every citizen that comes publicly.
But there aren't that many that early come.
Right.
There aren't that many.
I think if it affects and it's a general information or misconception that we want to get out, I think it is in our best interest to publicly share that response.
But if a parent comes complaining about a student, or in a situation where we had a representative of a parent come and make a public discussion about a personal issue,
No, I'm thinking of more general questions like, questions like, well, we noticed that you all didn't give much of a raise last year. I mean, in other words, that's more of what I'm thinking than of, well, my child this, and they weren't very nice to my child. I don't mean that. I mean, real important, no, not that the other's not important, but real general concerns.
On page 53, you'll see that we have drafted a budget development calendar. Basically, it includes what we traditionally have done, but also the additional new items that Mrs. Forsman spoke of as well. This is an action item.
I move that we approve the budget development calendar.
Second.
Board Member Bouchard,
Yes?
Board Member Brooks Buck,
Yes.
Board Member Byram,
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick,
Yes.
Board Member Skeeter,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Copeland,
Aye.
Chairman DeBranski.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we have any public speakers on non-agenda items? Do we have any public speakers on non-agenda items?
No, we do not.
Okay. Is this by board members? We'll start with Ms. Byram.
I really don't have anything at this time.
Okay, Ms. Dr. Buck.
I don't have anything this time. I did send out a tweet and just ask for prayers for those folks in Charlottesville who've experienced loss. And I understand that one of our students, one of our former students, the 2015 Lakeland grad, was attacked. So just prayers for those families.
Mr. Mitnick.
I don't have any comments at this time.
Ms. Skeeter.
No.
Bouchard.
I only wanted to make one comment, and that is, I'm sure everybody already knows this, but I just wanted to publicly offer my condolences to the Chambers family. One of our most wonderful English teachers who just retired in June died suddenly, and she's a wonderful person, and we're going to miss her very much, but also, she gave 38 fantastic years to our school system and was just one of the most reliable teachers that I have ever worked with. Darrell Chambers, who died just a couple of weeks ago. She worked at John Yates Middle School with us.
Mr. Copeland.
Oh, I don't have anything.
I have one item that Dr. Whitney and I met with the city manager and the mayor this past week, and we did formally set out a date, not a specific date. We're going to meet with the city council independently 3 times to go over the budget so that we can make them more aware of what we're doing as well. The city council is going to come back to us with several dates, and we'll go ahead and go from there. Okay. Informational items, as the board members would review informational items, see if there's anything needs to be added or subtracted from that. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the regular meeting.
Action.
Dr. Brand.
Action.
Oh, the pupil personnel?
Actually, personnel report, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I move that the personnel report be adopted.
Second.
Board Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Board Member Brooks Buck,
Yes.
Board Member Byram,
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick,
Yes.
Board Member Skeeter,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Copeland,
Aye.
Chairman DeBranski.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Personnel.
Mr. Chair, I move that the pupil personnel reports be adopted.
Second.
Board Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Board Member Brooks Buck,
Yes.
Board Member Byram,
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick,
Yes.
Board Member Skeeter,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Copeland,
Aye.
Chairman DeBranski.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We'll go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting at this time and come back.